Jack Ebling here with Dan Kilbridge, our SpartanTailgate.com All Big Ten team for 2010. Dan, we haven't even finished the team and already we're getting complaints. Apparently we forgot to name a long snapper, but I think that Alex Shackleton, all part of this Michigan State special teams unit that really was responsible for a couple of victories.
And you're not going to find one person in East Lansing outside of that football building who knows who Alex Shackleton is probably, and that's a great sign when you're a long snapper. You don't want anyone to know who you are, so tip of the cap to good old Shaq. We're going to miss watching him in those snaps next year.
Long snappers and officials, they want to have anonymity as long as they can. Well, let's talk about some of the guys who could have made this team and did not. Obviously, I thought it was very interesting in the coaches balloting that Denard Robinson was not first or second team at quarterback, but was their offensive player of the year.
That's the same logic I used. He's my offensive player of the year, and it's hard to put him on a first team as a quarterback because there were so many, and he didn't have that much success in that role as far as wins and losses as some of the other guys. And he's just a great explosive football player. I'm not sure he can continue to be a quarterback with how many shots he takes, how hard he gets hit. I mean, it's just very tough on him, but he is an explosive guy. He definitely needs to be on the field, and with all the records he set as far as the most rushing yards by a quarterback of all time, I think he definitely deserves the offensive player of the year honor.
Well, I took the Nick Saban approach, and when he used to pick all-star teams as a former defensive coordinator, he'd say, who do I not want to face? And for me, that would be Denard Robinson out of all the quarterbacks, but you really have to hand it to Scott Tolzien if you go by the Mark D'Antonio idea about a quarterback as a guy who leads you to wins, not who posts statistics. Then you can't do much better than Scott Tolzien, and he also set a conference record for completion percentage. It looked like that was going to be Dan Persa's, but of course the injury in his sixth conference game changed all of that. And had he played the rest of the way, I think he would have been my starting quarterback. I also had a couple of receivers I wanted to mention. I thought Roy Roundtree and B.J. Cunningham did a terrific job. And you could talk about Mark Dell, you can talk about Junior Hemingway, but I thought that Roy Roundtree and B.J. Cunningham were the two receivers I wanted to find a place for. Also, Dane Senzenbacher I thought should probably have been on the team, but I only picked two receivers. And as far as a couple of other players, I thought, I don't know how you can omit the Wisconsin running backs. At least they deserve a mention. When you have John Clay, the returning player of the year, James White, Monty Ball, you add their statistics together, and it's incredible.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll hear James White name come up later on here, but that tandem was very good. And looking at the quarterback spot, it was hard to leave Tolzien out because he was so efficient. He's definitely a guy you have to think long and hard about. With me, I just think it had to be done to leave him off just because I think there were a lot of other reasons that Wisconsin football team was so successful other than him, which maybe not the best approach to take. Maybe that's unfair to him, but that's just how I look at it.
Okay. So your quarterback is?
Terrell Pryor.
Terrell Pryor. All right. I'm going to stick with Denard Robinson. Let's talk a little bit about the newcomers, and there were a lot of them in the Big Ten this year, but who stands out to you as a freshman of the year?
James White is going to be my freshman of the year. I mean, he was able to, if you're able to take away carries from John Clay, you're doing something special, and he was able to do just that. Now, you got to talk about Le'Veon Bell, too, with the way he started the year. I mean, he won Freshman of the Week a couple times. He was very effective in short yardage situations, but also has that home run threat that we saw. Maybe just hit the wall a little bit late in the season. Perhaps wasn't used to playing that many games in a row, but I tell you what, those two freshman running backs really had a nice season.
Yeah, and I thought that James White, leading the NCAA in yards per carry for anyone with more than 140 attempts, 7 yards a carry, that's pretty impressive throughout the course of the season. How about your offensive player of the year? You mentioned before who you were going to pick.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Robinson. He's just so much fun to watch, and it's hard to leave him off the All Big Ten team for me, but I just think there were some better true quarterbacks out there. But as far as an athlete and a game changer, and what he was able to do for that offense, I don't think that offense works nearly as well with Tate Forcier starting all year or a host of other guys. I think he was the perfect fit for what Rich Rodriguez was trying to do this season. If he got some help from the defense, it would have been a different story. But we know how that turned out. I just really liked watching Robinson with his numbers. It's hard to argue that there's a better guy offensively.
Well, I'm going to pick a Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year who actually made my All-Big Ten team, and that's Denard Robinson. I just think that he did so much for Michigan, and I as bad as they were at times on defense, I can't imagine what they would have been like without him to try to at least win a couple of scoring duels. How about your defensive player of the year?
I went with Ryan Kerrigan. I mean, he is so effective. He can move around a lot. I mean, he goes from either end side they use him. He even went inside at times last year to try to throw offenses off. And all the statistics, the forced fumbles, the sacks, the tackles for loss, he's right up there in every category and really just commands that kind of attention. The double teams, you got to get your fullback involved or a tight end or figure out a way to stop him. And I think that kind of takes away from some of the things you're trying to do as far as scoring when you have to think about a dominant defensive end like that. And he really just, he's an offensive coordinator's worst nightmare this season.
Yeah, and I thought this was a very easy choice. I'm amazed that Ryan Kerrigan is not in the Final Four for the Lombardi Award. Adrian Claiborne is. And I think that's a miscarriage of justice. Adrian Claiborne didn't make either of our first team All Big Ten defenses. So I think that Ryan Kerrigan was the player of the year, offense or defense in the Big Ten. And last year it was Brandon Graham. This time I think it was Ryan Kerrigan was the best player I saw all season, although Michigan State did a pretty good job against him. All right, what about your coach of the year?
Coach of the year, I'm going to go with the one we've got in our backyard, Mark D'Antonio. I mean, there's the storylines there with the heart attack after Notre Dame, the way he was able to recover, get his team to 11-1, and just really put it all together this year. And he had a tough job when he came in at Michigan State. Not a lot of talent there as far as what some other Big Ten teams had. A lot of doubters, a lot of people who really thought that Michigan State was at a low point after John L. Smith, and this was a major undertaking, which, it certainly was. It was no small task, but he was able to do it, and I think with this year particularly, he had some great calls with the special teams. I just don't see another coach matching that.
All right, if you're going to have 3 wide receivers, I'm going to cheat here, and I'm going to give this award to the Michigan State staff. And I think that's an important distinction because while Mark D'Antonio was gone, I thought Don Treadwell really sealed his place as an up-and-coming coach that is going to get a head coaching job someday. And Pat Narduzzi, who a lot of people wanted to throw under a bus before the season, showed that he really could coach this team and was very inspirational. Those guys and all the other assistants pitched in together, so I'm going to give that award to Mark D'Antonio and staff.
That's fair. Narduzzi had some great game plans this year, particularly against Michigan, the way they were able to stop our Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year, Denard Robinson. I think he showed people that he is capable of being a good defensive coordinator at this level. And Treadwell's starting to get some head coaching interest, I would think, after the way he handled everything. They've been together for so long. Previously at Cincinnati, I just think this is a very tight-knit group, and they work very well together, and we saw that in 11 wins this season.
One of the great parts of this is so many of these players are young, underclassmen. We'll be talking about them again all next season. Jack Ebling here with Dan Kilbridge, our 2010 All Big Ten team for SpartanTailgate.com.